All right, I'd just like to bring this virtual meeting of the Dartmouth Waterways Commission meeting to order. I'm just going to kind of get myself out of the video. First of all, I'd just like to begin by thanking Peter Chase, DCTV, and everybody involved in this for helping us or winning us through this project. I'd also like to remind everyone that this meeting is being recorded, so that anybody would like to see this at another time and listen to this at another time, they can do that. And the other part that I'm going to do is, since we're all new at this, we'll do votes and everything by video, by roll call. So after we finish talking and before we do the actual vote, we'll poll it. Everybody have a chance to talk. When they finish talking, I will call the roll on these votes, so we'll have it recorded. We'll know, and everybody will know who is doing what. All right.
Yep.
We all good with that? We'll just
Yes.
again.
Yes.
First of all, I'd like to start with the roll call of our members. Warren Hathaway.
Yes, here.
Nice to see you. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Andy Hurley.
Present.
Jerry Hickey is here. Jeff Marshall, not here yet. He will be. Kevin Murphy.
Yes, sir, I'm here.
All right. Roger Race.
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Patty Swerodek.
Here.
And Steve Mello. Steve Mello.
He's got his microphone muted.
Sorry, you got that on. That's not going to do anything. That's up to them. Don't do that.
Looks like he
Actually,
lost connection.
Yeah, we lost his connection. All right, so let's just begin. He'll catch up. Let's just begin. If you all had an opportunity to review the minutes of the last meeting of January 21st, I believe.
Yes.
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 Oui.
Okay, do we have any corrections or omissions?
No.
No.
Okay, so could I have a motion to accept the minutes?
So
January
moved.
21st, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Ready? Second by Kevin.
Yeah.
All right. All in favor? I'm going to just go down the roll. Warren Hathaway,
Yes.
are you in favor?
Yes.
Andy Hurley,
Yes.
Jerry Hickey, yes. Jeff Marshall, not. Kevin Murphy,
Yes.
Roger Race,
Yes.
Patty Swerodek,
Yes.
and okay, waiting for Steve Mello to come back on. Here he is. He's back. All right, let's just start with the, you've had an opportunity to see the agenda for today. Is everybody in favor of the order in which we have everything?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so a motion to move forward with these minutes, with the agenda is posted.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, that's Andy. A second by
Patty.
Patty. Second. All right, Warren Hathaway in favor.
Yes.
Andy Hurley,
Yes.
Jerry Hickey, Jeff Marshall, not yet. Kevin Murphy,
Yes.
Roger Race,
Yes.
Patty Swerodek.
Yes.
All right, let's start out with the first item on the agenda is the New Bedford Yacht Club request for publishing guidance for local boating during this COVID-19 pandemic. So Steve, do you want to start out with that?
Sure. I received an email. The Yacht Club has a regular publication that they put out to its membership. Seasick here. And it's a good idea. I thought that it was needed. We have boaters that don't just live in Dartmouth, don't just live in Massachusetts, and they want to know what to expect. Should they put their boat in the water? Should they visit? Should they want to go sailing or boating with friends? So I started a research on the internet, pulling down information from everywhere in the US and elsewhere that was relevant to boating during Corona. And I got about 10 pages. And when I got to that point, the state created their own list. And it was pretty good, but it wasn't for Dartmouth. So I sent you all 4 pages of what I think is relevant and important Corona related in Dartmouth. And that went out, I believe, yesterday afternoon. I've also sent a copy of that to Chris Michaud, who's listening in to our meeting. And at his suggestion, I sent a copy of that same email to town council, who is a clearinghouse, if you will, for Corona related regulations and decisions based on that pandemic. And that's where we are. So I have posted a few excerpts from that document to our website, things that are not in controversy, guidance that comes from the state, things like that, that are not subject to us revising. And I plan on, if approved, to post sections of that 4-page document at various times in separate links on our website. So it's not overwhelming. It's not something that people will be intimidated to read all at once. But if you are worried about pump outs, there'll be a section on pump outs. If you're worried about visiting Rhode Island and coming home, there'll be a section on that. If you're thinking of visiting another area on a cruise, I've got a link that'll be good so you can go on yourself and see what the current status is for Kingman Marine or Davis and Tripp Marine. It's a resource guide. If approved, we'll put those up on the website and on social media and share it with those marinas and facilities and even our neighboring counterparts.
Great idea, Steve.
Thank you, Warren.
All right. Anybody have questions on this?
Could
I
we,
had-
Good.
go ahead.
Steve, one
Patty?
question, we're going to publish it on our website, but could we also send that out to the local papers and get the word out to newsprint?
Absolutely. I'm sure the media is looking for information, just as the boaters are, and I think everybody else in the world is looking for information.
Yep.
We can send it to them as is, and they can cull what they need from it, or they can publish it in separate installations. I have no problem with that. I'd like to share it with DCTV, and I'm scheduled to do an interview with them at 3 o'clock today. Just a question and answer of what we know so far.
Yep.
But we do have local media, and I'm sure there are other towns that are curious. Everyone is looking at what everyone else is doing
Right.
and trying to adapt what makes sense for their particular municipality. So I have no problem sharing that.
Right. It's very good, Steve. It's very comprehensive. Good
Yeah.
job.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was longer.
Anybody else have any questions on this? Patty?
I do. One question I have, and maybe I missed it in here, Steve, so my apologies if I did. Is this the same thing that comes from the U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary, or is that just one of the people that one of the organizations that's contributing to this set of
That's
standards?
just one of the many organizations that I've culled information from.
Okay.
And Coast Guard Auxiliary, there's something in there from CETO. There's different private organizations, other towns. I think there's one other town in Massachusetts so far that published a very short statement about their harbor being open. So it comes from local, state, everybody basically.
Okay. And one other question that I have down towards the end of the document is about for hire, about rentals, sailboat rentals and lessons. You're not talking about, when they talk about lessons and sailboat rentals, can you explain a little bit more about what that might include or not include?
That comes clear out of the state guidance that was published on Tuesday. It's actually dated Monday of this week. But the State Environmental Affairs Office published that language in that section, and I copied it verbatim.
Okay.
What they are looking at is bareboat rentals, such as South Wharf does with their power boats. They're looking at the charter fishing industry, which captain and maybe a deckhand will take out people to go fishing anywhere. Basically, what they've concisely written in the last section of that, if it's not your boat, that's what they're looking at. And that sentence summarizes it. That brought up an interesting topic that I was presented this morning from Mattapoisett. They're asking what we're doing with our launches. We don't have a launch in Dartmouth that we operate. The Yacht Club does. Apparently, the town of Marion has decreed that a launch is a vessel for hire. And there are not going to be any launches under that line of reasoning. I've spoken with Roger Fortier, who's the Commodore at the New Bedford Yacht Club, and we've spoken with a gentleman who's the Assistant Inspector for the Coast Guard MSO Providence, and launches, in his mind, fall under the Coast Guard jurisdiction. They are marine transportation, and therefore they fall under essential services. This is one of those things where I get to kick the can up and let them figure it out.
That's always good.
It was put to me very succinctly by town council today: stay in your own lane. That's
Yep.
what I plan to do. There's enough traffic and potholes in my own lane that I don't need to get into somebody else's lane, namely the Coast Guard, to figure that out.
Right.
It's not resolved, but until I hear otherwise, the yacht club is going to operate under guidance from the U.S. Coast Guard, who inspects and licenses their marine transportation launches. And stay tuned.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else have any? Kevin?
No, I'm good with that. Thank you. Good job,
Andy?
Steve.
Andy,
Nope.
any questions?
Yeah, no, all good.
I'm
Warren?
good with that, thanks.
I just have a couple of questions. Has the town council, has he approved this already, or is this subject to his approval?
It's going to be subject to town council review and approval and changes. You know, if there's suggested changes, we'll follow those. He did just receive it today, so I'm not expecting that he's going to be able to drop everything else and do that.
Yep.
We'll get that when he's able. And it was sent to town council without going through the normal channels where we would need to fill out a request for services, because the health department was able to clearly think ahead and get an open voucher, if you will, or an open access to town council for anything that's corona related, which I think is important. When you need to get prompt, succinct answers, you don't need to go through the red tape, and this falls under that, and that's why it was sent to town council review.
And of course, it's all, everything is subject to the governor. The governor keeps open and closes and whatever he has to say with his edicts, correct?
Everything is changing day to day, minute to minute. So yeah, and that's included in there, and it'll be stressed even further probably in the final draft, but it's all subject to review. It is not medical advice. It is a guide from where I sit, basically.
Okay, and this is something that when we finish with this, you're going to send to the select board?
The select board, the town administrator will get it. I like the idea of letting the media go with it. And yeah, it's an open document. This will be shared as far and wide as I can. At some point, I will publish the full 4 pages. And like I said, if I can release it in a better way through our social media and our website, we'll do that. And by better way, I mean succinct little paragraphs instead of the full document.
Okay.
Is this something that we're going to need to approve through Waterways so that before it goes to the select board or town council or anybody? Do we need to do that?
Not before it goes to town council, because that's already been done, but if the Waterways were to vote and advise that we share it, then that would certainly, it would come from all of us to the select board and not just from me.
All right, anybody else have any questions on this? Is this something that the board wants to make a motion for, or do you want to wait to the end of this, this item?
The end of this item, you mean?
Well, yeah, well, this is New Bedford Yacht Club, so we're going to be talking about returning vessels, transient, that's included, local vessels throughout the season. But we haven't talked about the restroom facilities, maritime, that thing yet, so. Do you want to wait till all that's done, or you just want to act on this particular,
Well,
whatever you guys want to do?
I would think that we should make a motion to share, as Steve said, make a motion to share this with the select board if he deems that to be appropriate, and do it before we get to the end so we don't forget.
Want to do that now?
If
Sure.
everybody agrees. I'm only trying to keep it clean.
No, yeah, so, that's your motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, so Patty has made the motion and it's seconded by Kevin. All right, all in favor of Warren Hathaway? Andy Hurley?
Yes.
Jerry Hickey, yes. Kevin Murphy?
Yes.
Yes, second it, yes. Roger Race?
Yes.
And Patty Swaradek, of course.
Yeah.
All right, so that's, are there any opposed? Nobody opposed? So moved. All right,
Motion carries.
so let's look at, under this New Bedford Yacht Club on the agenda, any more comments on returning local vessels from distant waters? Any more conversation or any more questions on that?
No.
Steve?
Not here. No.
Fine, here.
Steve Mello, any more on that?
You're muted, Steve.
It's open and it's evolving. Right now, we don't know what we're going to expect and where they're going to come from, but it's being thought through. And I don't know that we're going to be treating somebody from New York any differently than somebody who comes here from Rhode Island. As Chris Michaud explained, the initial onset of this, where there was a spike in New York and people were moving to Dartmouth, just to keep it relevant, it's over. And now it doesn't really matter where you've been or where you're going from. There's been enough commingling throughout the Northeast, at least, that state borders don't have as much relevance as they did maybe a month ago. But it is something we got to look at in terms of how long they stay, what they do when they're here, and how we handle services to those boats.
Okay, so we've talked about that. That's the transient and visiting vessels. Any comments on any of that?
I-
Local vessels? Go ahead, Kevin.
I think if a vessel's coming from an area or a region that has similar guidelines in Massachusetts, then it could be assumed that they've been following those guidelines. If they're coming from a state that has conceptually different guidelines, then that may be something that may have to be closer looked at. But I think if we all share the similar guidelines from those states, then that just ought to be in effect in Massachusetts.
Anybody else? Any other comments?
I just want to add, because I got a text from Chris Michaud, who's our health director. The town is going to be looking at, sort of as a supplement to this, the fishing aspect, saltwater fishing during COVID, fishing from the bridge. It's likely going to be a popular activity where people don't have the opportunity to do a lot of other things. Fishing, providing food for the family, it's likely to be a popular thing, and they are going to publish a guide that'll go hand in hand with what we're doing, hopefully, not contradict it. I think we're on the same page, but geared specifically to the fishing aspects of the boating.
Yeah, I've seen situations recently where that is the outlet, and the issue has come up about the social distancing, because it starts out with people starting out with one person out fishing and then on the bridge, and then someone comes the next, and then someone else, and before you know, you have a whole gang there. So there has been some law enforcement issues with that in other states. Okay, local vessels. Any comments on the Maritime Center with regard to the showers, to the restrooms, and to the offices there, our office?
Our office is going to remain in the same status as Town Hall, for lack of a better description. If Town Hall is closed, then our offices are closed to the public. The bathrooms are separate. They're not under our control. And that has been kicked from the select board to the Corona Task Force in Dartmouth for consideration. So if they should open, then under what conditions should they open? And again, that group is going to be looking into that specifically.
Makes sense.
I said, Patty, go ahead.
That makes sense. That makes sense to me. You know, to
All right,
have,
Steve, so you don't want any input from us at this particular time on this, do you?
No, there really is no need for it because, as I said, if they open Town Hall with certain restrictions, we'll follow suit. If they don't open Town Hall, or the town offices, I should say, then we'll be going along with that as well as we can. There may be some need for us to access that building to separate our own staff, but not have it open to the public. I'll cross that bridge when we get into our operations. But at this point, that's what we're looking at.
Okay. Are there any other questions on the Maritime Center? Any concerns, any issues with that? All right. Any comments on the private marinas? Steve?
No, I think it was nice that, the yacht club did reach out, and it shows that we're all looking for answers and we're looking to work together. I know Davis and Tripp is the same. I have heard from them, and whatever we published, they're willing to go along with, and they're willing to help get our message out to their customers as well. But I think we're working as well as can be expected under these conditions.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on that item number 3?
I just want to say thank you, Steve,
You're welcome.
for doing so much work on this and putting together what looks like to be a very comprehensive plan.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'd also, thank you, Steve. I'd also like to thank Chris Michaud, who may be listening in on this. Steve and I had a nice conversation with him about the regulations, and he has been extremely helpful in any of the questions we had, and there's a lot to go with it, a lot more to go with it, but I'd just like to just thank him for what he's been doing with this whole situation. All right. Roger Street Waterways Access Facility.
We skipped over the waste removal under the first subject.
Oh, sorry.
Just briefly.
Yeah, that's very important.
Yeah, the City of Annapolis, Maryland Harbor Master Office put out a statement last week that they were suspending operation of the pump out program because they had been advised that the compression of waste moving through the pump system would create an aerosol, which is different than an odor, and that the transmission of the virus through waste would extend or could extend to the aerosol produced. And until further information or mitigation was learned, they were going to suspend operation. We are not normally in the pump out mode at this point, so I'm monitoring what they learn. I've asked the state pump out program operator, the head of that, who has run it up the flagpole, so to speak, to the federal government for guidance on waste pump out and the possible transmission of the virus. I received a response this week that they're working on it. And I've also spoken with the Fairhaven Harbor Master, who has spoken to Edson, who is the leader in this program for equipment. And at the very least, we're going to be adding HEPA filters to our exhaust and whatever other guidance they can come up with so that we can do this effectively, because the alternative, this stuff ends up in the water and people are swimming and fish are swimming through it, or people are getting it on them through splashes, and that's not appealing either. So we're looking into it, we're cognizant of it, and we'll do what is advised as the best course.
But you're not doing any pump outs as of now, Steve? No pump out?
Correct. As of now, the boat is still winterized, and I'm waiting, again, if we get guidance to install this widget or this gadget, we'll do that before we launch it. And we usually start that pump out program the week before Memorial Day weekend. And at the rate we're at right now with the number of boats that are in the water, I don't expect that there's going to be a huge demand, although there are always people who, as soon as they hit the water, are looking for a pump out. We're not there yet. And I'd rather do it properly and safely than promptly.
All right, anybody else have any comments, questions on that issue?
Is the pump out,
Patty?
are the pump out recommendations or information about the fact that we're not going to have any pump out at this time, you know, and will be later on? Is that in that list that's going to go on the website or being shared?
It is mentioned, not just for us, but for wherever people may visit, if they're going to another town, that they should check first to see if that pump out service is available or if shoreside facilities are available. And I expect that we'll probably get some answers before the second week of May, which is when we would be starting the pump outs anyway.
Okay.
It is suggested that people check before they use their holding tank.
Yeah, and because I would think that, you know, if people come and visit and they're not really very aware of these things, because people quite often don't read all of the information out there, that you want to make that known so that you don't end up with stuff in the water.
Well,
All right, anybody else? Steve, go ahead.
most of our visitors transients do come through the yacht club because they've got the launch service. And as soon as we have a policy or plan in place, we're going to publish it to them as well.
Anybody else have any questions? All set to move on? All right. Roger Street, Waterways Access Facility. Status?
That was closed in the winter, as it always is. The gates are swung shut, and it remains that way. The community boating docks have been put back in the water. The concrete ramps that are to be installed as a temporary boat ramp are still stacked in that facility. And with community boating closed and no ramp to access the water, I did not see that that facility was an essential function that needed to be reopened at this time. So we're waiting.
If I could interrupt, I did receive an email from, I questioned the conservation, Michael O'Reilly, a couple of weeks back, and he answered me with an email saying that the Roger Street ramp was due to be installed tomorrow, May 1st. So hopefully Medeiros is on track to get that done, but that was the last that I was advised about that issue.
Okay, and I sent an email to him as well, just trying to get an update. And he told me the same thing, subject to talking to the Medeiros or whoever's going to do that. And they're waiting on that. So that's basically starting tomorrow. So we'll see how that goes from there.
I would assume they're going to need a key to the gate so they can open it, but I haven't heard anything.
Okay, so we can cross the opening and closing of that facility when all the stuff is going. There's no rush to do that. Andy still is there a boat in there or something?
Yep, Damfino.
Yep. All right, so that's going very well. You might not make a comment about the non-essentials, the littering and Jones Beach and all that.
In a
Steve?
weekly telephone meeting, conference, I'm not sure how to phrase it, of the task force last Friday, Tim Lancaster announced that he has seen an increase in illegal dumping, people littering, not just their protective equipment, gloves and masks, but just opening the window and throwing stuff out after they've been sitting in Jones Park watching the water while they eat lunch or breakfast or whatever it might be. And he at least noticed an increase in littering, and another, I think, reason for keeping that place closed. People do like to go in and sit by the water and watch, and we do want to encourage that, but we don't want to have to be picking up trash, if it's not an essential facility, especially. We don't have receptacles for trash there. So that's just an observation from Tim Lancaster in the park department.
So it's closed until further notice at your discretion?
Correct.
Yeah. A lot of that is dependent on how long it takes. Anybody have any idea how long it'll take to install that ramp? That a week, 2 weeks?
The original ramp that I had envisioned for that area would have been literally a rollout ramp, so a scraping of the area and at low tide installation of the concrete. I have heard that they are going to do a cofferdam, and if that's the case, it's going to be substantially longer. It's going to take a little bit of doing to get that done, installed, and then removed.
Kevin, did you get any indication as to how long that would take or any other information on the process? Because I didn't.
I did not, other than the fact that they was due to start on May 1st. That's the only
Yeah, that's all
information that was
I got
provided
was
to
May
me.
1st.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I got May 1st, and I got that on Monday or Tuesday. So that's all I got. Okay,
Well, that's pretty
we all
recent.
good with that? Yeah. Well, I had heard you were telling me about that before. I just wanted to make sure it was. Because sometimes that slides a little bit. You know. All right. Any other questions on Roger Street? Andy, we good with everything down there?
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I mean, when there's not a lot of activity down there from programs, you'll see a lot of trash. So I think Steve's plan's smart. I like it.
And if you need it,
We
Andy,
don't need to
I
vote
know
on
that-
that, do we, Steve?
I know you have programs that right now are shut down, but if you have a need, we can revisit at any time for limited or full access. It's fluid, idea.
Understood.
All right. All right, everybody good with that? Ready to move on
Yep.
to the grant issue. The Maritime Center, the deadline for that was supposed to be June of 2020, when this grant is supposed to be closed out. So, Steve, will you just want to give us an update as to where we are? Because a little bit has changed on that since then.
The last I had heard, there remains $14,500. And I don't know if that is precise, but that's the amount that was quoted remaining in the Maritime Center Seaport Economic Council grant. The Waterways Commission had put together a punch list either last summer or last fall of items they would like to see installed with the remaining funds. The town administrator, I believe, asked the grants director, development director, to write a response to each of those requests, and I received that last week. I asked to share it with the Waterways Commission, and he asked that I provide my response to the memo prepared by the Director of Development. I did that. I submitted it back. I got no reply, so I shared the memo from the Director of Grants with the Commission, and you've seen that, and you've seen my response. Since that was done, Ellen Sabula from the Seaport Economic Council has weighed in, and my highest priority is an efficient, effective, working pump for the pump out program. And she has said quite clearly that that is an allowable expense under the grant. The pushback against the new pump was that it was not in the original plans. My response to that was, that's why we have change orders. The length of the new float coupled with the angles of the piping itself, the right angles, the uphill turns, that was, I think, what makes our old pump ineffective, inefficient. At low tide, there are times we can't empty out the pump out boat, or we'll let it try to work it for a good 50 to 60 minutes before it will drain out the 400-gallon tank on our pump out boat. That's not effective, and it's not good for the boat, pump, or anyone. So the experts who install these gave me the opinion last summer that the problem was in the pump itself being small, being insufficient to handle the length of the new dock, the rise, the right angles. It runs and it works, and it would do fine with our old dock. Shorter length and less height coming up that gangway. So again, that's why we would have a change order in a building permit, a building plan for unforeseen changes. So I'm pushing for that new pump to be funded and installed.
I think it's
Okay,
noteworthy.
so basically what you're going to, Greg, yeah, go ahead.
If I may, I think it's noteworthy that it's a pushback from the town administrator and Deb Wender is often that it's not in the original plan. The reason that a lot of things were left out of the plan was that it was felt that we had to work very closely with a tight budget because, as you know, it had gone over the budget. Things left out of the plan were not necessarily that they weren't wanted or secondary, but that would put us over budget. So I think that we could push back a little bit that any money that's left, saying it's not in the original plan really doesn't hold water because the plan was kind of built to minimum standards to make sure we stayed within budget. I think that's a very important point.
Yeah, I do too. And at this particular point, Steve, have you written a letter to, so I sent the letter with all, we've talked about this a long time. So I sent that letter. You all have a copy of that, and where Deb Wender responded to all those requests saying these weren't allowable. And Steve, you got the notice from the town administrator with that copy, and you had an opportunity to respond to that, and you have responded, correct?
That's correct.
So you're asking, so you have asked them to go back after the hooks in the showers, the stools in the showers, a mat, and the remaining balance to go towards the pump for your pump out area, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. All right, so now that's my understanding now is that that's going to Ms. Wender, and Ms. Wender hopefully will get in touch with Mr. Bueller, so we could probably see how that goes in the future.
Does it make any sense to have our board make a motion to support the harbor master's recommendation to use the remaining funds for a pump and send it to the select board?
I think that's a good idea.
It seems to me that it has seemed to me in the past that not everybody seems to understand at the select board or agents, other part town hall seem to understand, you know, what the harbor master, our harbor master is saying, how things really work. And it seems to me that we should send a short paragraph that outlines Steve's recommendation to use the money, remaining funds for a pump and why, you know, maybe in bullet form, and then say that it was discussed at this board and motion to recommend to the select board to use the funds as stated.
Anybody
I'll make
else?
that motion.
Okay.
Well, Steve has already
Motion
written a
made
blue
by-
letter to
So I just-
John.
He's already done that, but has it gone to the select board as a motion from us? I don't know. I'm not even sure it'll help, but I'm asking the question.
I think we've already done that, and I think Steve's already done it. My only question on that is Steve requested $5,000 of the 14, but since that money is available and it could be more than that. So for example, if Miss Wenda requests that transfer and says, look, we want to buy the mats, and the mats are X number of dollars, and we want to buy the benches and X number, we want to get the hooks. And if there's remaining money, could we use this to buy this pump? Use that, whatever that difference, it could be 5, 6, 7, it could be, I don't know, whatever that number
I
is.
thought you said it was 10.
So,
Yeah, the pump itself, it could be in the $15,000 to $20,000 range for equipment plus installation. I've got to get a firm number from Edson this week, and I will do that. Again, the grant will pay for more mats. The more mats we have on the beach, the more usable that space will be. The small benches temporarily, small mirrors, the hooks, those things are very small money. Whatever is left, I think the priority needs to be a new pump, and if it pays, the grant pays for half of it, and we pay for half of it out of our retained Clean Vessel Act money, that's great. We'll seek reimbursement later. If we get it, fine. If we don't, we've got a pump that works, and that is the priority. So
what, all right, so what if Kevin amends his motion to just say what you just said, that we support your efforts to use the remaining money for what we just talked about? Would that work for you, Kev?
I'm willing to amend that, sure.
Okay, is there a second on that motion?
Second.
Okay, that's Patty seconds that. All right, is there any discussion on it?
Roger, did you have a question about this? About making?
Well, no, Steve wrote a letter addressed to Sean, the town administrator. He's supposed to work for the select board. I thought they would have gotten a copy of this already, but as you say, I don't know.
Yeah, but see, what we're saying is
always hear-
we're supporting Steve's effort. That's what we're saying.
Yeah,
Yeah,
fine. I'm all in favor of that. I support the motion.
Yeah.
And let's take it and then tell them to listen to that motion.
Seems to me to be like a belt and suspenders to make sure that they know about it.
Right. I agree. The pump is undersized with the increased distance, the increased head pressure, and the fittings that cause friction. The pump that's there is woefully inadequate, and we can, just get a better pump. And quite honestly, Steve, I know the folks at Edson quite well. I would twist their arm heavily and say, hey, you guys use this pump too. Let's get it going and give us a deal.
Okay. Any other comments? So we have a motion, we have a second. Are there any other comments from anybody? All right, so all in favor? I'm going to start with Warren Hathaway.
In favor.
Andy Herlihy.
Yes.
Jerry Hickey, yes. Kevin Murphy.
Yes.
Roger Race.
Yes.
Patty Sweroduk.
Yes.
Okay, that's unanimous. All right, so moved. All right, Dyess Landing feasibility study. Steve, could you just give us an update on where we stand with that right now?
Okay. At the Gloucester meeting in February, we were awarded the grant. Kevin and Patty were there with me, and I appreciated that. We had support come from Mike Gagne, town administrator, and Mattapoisett, who spoke highly in favor of what we're trying to do, and we were awarded the grant for studying the feasibility of building some level of marina facility at the Dyess Landing. The town is on the hook for a match in funds of $16,000. Because of the timing and the uncertainty of the timing of town meeting, the town transferred $16,000 from their emergency funds to commit the match requirement, so the grant is locked in. The town meeting warrant, which you will receive a copy of this afternoon, has repayment of the $16,000 match coming from Waterways retained earnings. And if the town meeting votes in favor of that, the town will be reimbursed $16,000 out of our dwindling retained earnings account. The next step is, who do we hire? And Waterways has firmly supported urban harbors. And I've been asked by the town administrator to request a proposal and a proposed scope of work from urban harbors for completion of that study. Should I go on, or is that,
No, that's so that's already in the motion though. So now Urban Harbors has it
they
and,
do?
and they're going to be sending that back to whom?
Probably to me, and then it'll go through me to the town administrator and grant administrator. I believe that's the route that it should take, because I've been, at least at this point, designated by the town administrator as the point of contact to urban harbors. So,
Okay. And in a conversation I had, the whole idea behind this was that originally we were promised that the town would provide that $16,000, but due to the circumstances, whatever they are, whatever the circumstances are, that they had to use the retained earnings, and that if possible, they will try to get at the town meeting or at another time, try to reimburse the Waterways for that $16,000, since it is a town project and it comes under the harbor development plan that the town has approved.
Excuse me.
All right, so
Uh,
anything else on that?
Steve, you and Steve seem to be saying two different things. The town has already locked in the grant with their money to get money reimbursed from Waterways, or Waterways is locked in the grant to get reimbursed by the town. You're saying, I'm understanding two different scenarios there.
Steve, you want to explain it?
yeah, it's the former. We cannot access our retained earnings without going through town meeting. Between the grant award and the time needed to lock in the grant, there obviously has been no town meeting to approve taking money from our savings account, if you will, and committing it to this grant. So as a bridge loan stopgap measure, the town took its own money and
Okay.
committed it to locking down the grant, with Waterways being required to reimburse the town at the first town meeting opportunity.
Okay. Thank you.
And the commitment, not the commitment, but the attempt will be, just as Kevin had this verbal agreement before, that the town would try to reimburse us that $16,000 at another time. But since there are a lot of financial uncertainties going on at the time, a lot of this can't be guaranteed, and we have to wait till a lot of these financial situations in town and the state and everything else until that all shakes down before we can get a better handle on it.
I'm still confused about the reimbursement, Jerry. The town is paid for it, and they're looking to get reimbursed from Waterways, not vice versa.
The town is fronting the money until
Right.
town meeting.
Right. So they
And
will
at
get
town
reimbursed.
meeting,
Right.
they're going to transfer the money from retained earnings,
Of
and that's going to
Waterways.
pay for it from Waterways retained
Okay.
earnings.
Right. Okay.
And then there's no guarantee on that. So this is just to cover the grant so it will roll. And at some point, they will try to reimburse us that 16 grand from funds that we've talked about in the past.
Okay.
And
So
we know how that works. We know how that works. So,
right. So there's two
yeah.
reimbursements you're talking about. I see what you're.
we're hoping, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
this is just to make sure this thing is rolling. So now we
Right.
know we have this grant rolling, and all we need to do is get this urban harbors plugged in, and that
Mhm.
can be off and running.
Okay. Thank
You
you.
good? All right. The Dredge Feasibility Grant. First of all, are there any other questions on the Dyess, the feasibility study? Any questions from any of our members? Nope.
Nope.
All right. The Dredge Feasibility Grant. The deadline for this grant is June 1st, 2020, with the initial match $27,000. The grant itself would be for, correct me, Kevin, you know more about this than I do. The grant is about $100,000 to $127,000. that
I
correct?
believe that's been expanded to 150.
Okay,
Is what the
okay.
number there. That was recommended by Susan Nilsson, that we probably go to 150, 125 to 150.
Okay,
So
so with that grant
Mhm.
application, it's also required that there's be a match, a $27,000 match, which we originally thought was going to come from the town. Secondly, along with that, and correct me if I'm wrong, the town would have to commit to half of whatever that dredge would be at some point down the road. So, for example, here's the money for the grant. Let's just say the 27 match was there. The town would have to commit. If we're going to go with that, we have to commit to doing the dredge itself, and that dredge itself would be funded by either a bond or however the town wanted to do that. Correct?
Yes. The other thing that I'd like to mention is that the government, as part of a stimulus package, may be looking for shovel-ready projects. And in 2, 3, 4 years, when this permitting process would finally be done, Ellen Sabula indicated that the previous, under the Obama administration, they had gotten phone calls looking for shovel-ready projects, which the town didn't have any at the time. So another thing in favor of this potential dredging grant is that it could be considerably a project funded by the federal government. But again, that's just a possibility and just another point to argue for the study, that it does make the project shovel ready. And if it was permitted, I would assume that, and I don't know, Steve could maybe check on this, that the permit to do the dredging may be good for 5 or 6 years. So we really don't know immediately what kind of shape we're going to be in 5 or 6 years from now as far as the actual dredging copay would be. So with that in mind, we have to make our decision what it is we want to do.
So the question now is, if that's the case, and knowing what the financial situation is at that time, and knowing that the deadline for this grant is June 1st, 2020, do we want to go forward with this, knowing that, thinking that the town will support this at town meeting, or do we want to table this to the next meeting, a Seaport Council grant dateline, which would probably be in November?
Can we, is it a possibility to move forward with it and then defer? Submit the application and then defer?
The problem that
Works
we
like
have
that,
is
you've got to show that you've got $30,000 and where it's going to come from. And it sure looks like it's going to come from us, since the town refuses to give us any money for any of our projects.
that's just part of it. The grant itself has to identify where the matching funds for the feasibility study and engineering will come from. 20% of 150,000 is 30 grand. We can identify that we've got, maybe have that much left in our retained earnings, but it is going to wipe out Waterways retained earnings. The bigger problem I've got is in that grant application that you submit, you must also identify where the matching funds will come from for the dredging work that would be permitted. Now, I'm not an expert on this by any stretch, but I'm going to guesstimate that it's going to be $1 million to do the work of dredging. And if there's a 20% match of that, we're going to have to come up with close to $250,000. It would need to be bonded. We cannot say that we're going to get a bond for $200,000 without having some idea from town meeting that they would back that. So that's the problem I've got. They were looking for a level of commitment for the work funds that we're not going to be able to provide without getting some, at least, sense of the meeting from a town meeting.
And I've been told that if this isn't complete, in other words, all these things aren't together, that this grant would not be either accepted, or the grant would be accepted, or or it would, when it went to the council would not accept it. So that's the reason why I ask if you want to, is this something you want to table? And this, seeing in November at the next cycle, with the feasibility study maybe underway and we get a better idea what's going on. If there's some stimulus money available out there, right now, my feeling is that town meeting would not accept this. If we said, let's go with it, and we went to town meeting, and the town meeting said, no, this is a no anyway. So my question is, do you want to go forward with this now, knowing that, or do you want to table this and then reapply for this application at the, submit this application at the November meeting, or discuss it prior to the November meeting?
One other item that I want to add is that the town is working under a non-essential spending freeze memo, which was just announced. And I'm sending that to everybody this afternoon. I don't know if they would consider dredging to be essential. I think it is, but that's my perspective. I'm seeing other projects go before town meeting for playground equipment and engineering on buildings, but I don't know where we would fit in that pecking order, essential or emergency funding that's exempt from the spending freeze.
I certainly don't see that we'd have this type of information available for June 1st. And I think it could be wise to see how the feasibility study for the marina, and there's actually going to be a substantial copay to the $1 million grant for whatever we develop over there. So I think Steve raises a good point that it's unlikely that those funds could be committed by June 1st, and I don't even think it could be done by November 1st, but I would support a motion to table it indefinitely at this time anyway, and see how we make out with the grant we have, and potentially $1 million grant to follow.
I would agree with Kevin. I make a motion to table this at least until the end of the summer, when we have, one, a better handle on what's going on with our existing grant. Two, we have a better handle on what the monies are. And three, we all have more data that we can go in. I'm not worried. I'm sure that we'll be able to write grants in the future. I'm sure that things will get back to normal, and I'm sure there will be money. I agree with you, Kevin. There may be even new money out there in the future, maybe next year, to really get things stimulated. So I would make that motion to just table it until September.
Okay, there's a second. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
All right, Patty seconds it. All right, is there any discussion? Warren, any comments?
Yeah, the comment basically, they've sent us a memo or an attitude that unless they absolutely have to, leadership has shown that they don't really want to support us in a consistent way. So it would be very dangerous to support that vote and then tell them that, we'll find a way to do the $1 billion later on, because there's too many ifs. And so I just say, take it and do what we can, lock us into it. That means putting the whole project off, and that's what we should do. That's my feeling.
Okay. All right, Andy, any comments?
Agree with the motion completely.
Okay, Kevin, you made the motion. Okay, Patty, any other comments?
Nope. I think all makes
Steve?
sense to me that we table it till the end of the summer.
Okay. All right, so motion made, seconded, and discussion. All in favor. Warren Hathaway, in favor?
Yes.
Andy Hurley.
Yes.
Jerry Hickey, yes. Kevin Murphy.
Yes.
Roger Race.
Yes.
Patty Sporadek.
Yes.
So moved. All right, good. Thank you.
I will
All right,
I'll send a message to town administrator and grant administrator to that effect.
okay. So we're withdrawing that, and I think that would be, I think that's a nice move on our part to do that, recognizing the circumstances. All right, SNEP Water quality, Roger Race.
So I have been working with Steve Bliven on this is yet another grant. We would be partners with the Coalition for Buzzards Bay. They would take the lead on it. They would get the money, but then we would do in-kind work where the water quality would be monitored in the waters of Dartmouth, and we would not be on the hook for any copay. We would not be on the hook for any monies that we have to get approved by town hall, and we would just get good water quality data going forward. It's an annual grant, and it's looking pretty good. And Steve and I have been in touch with the Coalition for Buzzards Bay. So there's really no action on our part since we don't have to spend any money. We'll work with Steve, and we'll probably work with the coalition to, I would imagine, set up, my hope is a long-term monitoring stations all around the harbor to get better water quality data. And that would include, over by you, Andy, we'll go over to the Cove and collect water quality data there. I think that's important since there's two major beaches and you're launching for kids and stuff. So I hope to get better water quality data out of this without having to spend any money. So that would be my push.
All right, any comments?
I think that's awesome. We love that data. There is a note, since we started aquaculture last year, we do have some monitoring devices in the water down in the Cove too that may be able to tie in.
Oh, excellent. What do you have in the Cove now, Andy?
Just off the Dolphin, which is the structure right off the CBC pier. They're kind of suspended off there.
Okay. It's measuring water temperature, conductivity, and pH?
Yeah, I'd have to look at what we've got on there. We partnered with the Port of New Bedford on that,
Okay.
just for some aquaculture stuff.
That's cool. That's very cool. All that kind of stuff we'll bring together and we'll have modern data. And again, I think this SNEP grant does come around every year for water quality, and it's for the whole Buzzards Bay estuary. So this is really good if we can have it go from New Bedford all the way to the border of Westport.
Yeah.
All right, any other comments?
Is the Conservation Commission going to be joining in on this effort at all, or as just part of the group? Or
Patty, you were wonderful. Michael called me back, I guess, 10 minutes after you talked to him. And he's all in, and he'll give a letter of recommendation and say they'll help in any way, shape, or form he can. But as you know, he's retiring, and he doesn't want to take any kind of leadership role because he's out of here. And I totally understand that. I said, that's all we want is your body's permission that we could go ahead. And he gave 2 thumbs up with that. So we're in good shape.
good. Okay. Terrific.
Thank you.
All right, any other comments? Anybody else? That's also a goal of the harbor management plan, so that's tied into that. So that's all good.
Yep. I'm
All
working,
right.
working.
You need a motion to do this?
Do we get any motion for that?
Hello?
I
We need a motion.
was given a mandate to chug ahead on all things water quality, so that's what I'm doing. And we had made that motion in a previous meeting, quite honestly. So I don't think a motion is really required at this time, Patty, unless you feel like making
don't either.
motions this afternoon.
Nope, I don't either. Nope, that wasn't me. That was Jerry.
All right, so we're all on board with this, and that motion is already has been placed to accept this?
Yes.
Should any of that information go to the town, Sean or anybody else, so that they're aware of it?
They are aware of it, and
Okay.
we're in the process of working with Coalition, so we haven't applied yet and we haven't got it. So they are aware of it though, Patty. I mean, we've been copying Sean on all things grants.
Great.
Okay, so this isn't a grant that needs a motion to, we've already done this, we're all on board with this already. You don't need anything from us supporting it, so we're gonna move on. Good.
Well, I need $1.50 for another coffee.
All right. You can take it off the credit card. All right, financial status of enterprise fund reserves, retained
boy.
earnings and so on. Steve.
I had hoped to have some solid numbers, but with everybody working remotely and switching shifts, I don't have a clear picture at this point of exactly what we've got in our retained earnings at this time. I can tell you that our receipts for the current fiscal year, which ends on June 30th, so we're 2 months away, our revenue is down by maybe 15% is the closest I can, and that's largely in part to people who have given up boating or people who are not putting their boats in the water this year because of the virus. So it's to be expected. It's not as bad as it could be, and we start a new fiscal year on July 1st. I don't know what that's going to bring for us for next year. I can tell you that the town meeting warrant has numbers, including town overhead, rising to almost $59,000, and we're going to have to make up from somewhere. I don't expect we're going to be adding a lot of revenue into retained earnings. I think that we are probably stretching what we've got, and when the dust settles from this shutdown and pandemic, we're going to need to reevaluate, but it's too early to say what we need and what we need to do. I think everyone's going to be in the same boat. And we're obviously not able to hire the full complement of staff that the town administrator would like, given the restrictions we're working under, but also given the number of boats that are not going to be coming in at this point, we may not need to start that full complement of staff at this point. So I'm still working on that.
Okay. Any questions on that?
It actually ties
As
in.
a matter of the budget items, if I could, something a little bit off agenda, how are we proceeding with buying that vehicle from District 1 to the Assistant Harbor Master? Steve, do you have an update on that?
I've spoken to the chief, Peter Andrade, and he is going to have that vehicle brought to M&M Auto for an evaluation. I am very much interested in proceeding, and I just want to make sure that we cover all the bases and say to whomever might question why we're buying a used vehicle that we've had it checked out and that it does suit our purposes. So I expect that tomorrow, as soon as tomorrow, that 2009 Tahoe will be delivered to M&M for an evaluation and a check and a computer read, and then we'll proceed. I've sent an email 2 or 3 weeks ago asking for what I need to do to complete the sale, and I heard from the town administrator, who is telling me to work with Greg Barnes, getting the paperwork and the transfer done, if it all meets our requirement. So.
So that's moving right along then.
Yep.
Good. Kevin, just thank you to Kevin Murphy for his help in helping to move this thing through from fire department to Waterways. Just while we're talking about that, Steve, I forgot to ask before about the Dyess landing with under the funds and everything. Have we paid for the electric, and had the cameras been installed over there yet?
We have completed the payment to the contractor for the electricity. We have lights and we have electricity in the shed. 2 Mondays ago, I got a call a little after 8 o'clock to go open the shed. The company was there installing cameras, and I got that from the IT person at the police department. So I did. I opened the shed. He said that he was covering where they go and how they do it and what they put up. So I stayed for a short time and then I left. There are cameras up. You can see where they are. They're not as high as I would have thought they would have been, but there are cameras there. I don't know how much they cost. I don't know who's paying for them. I don't know if what you see is what we get or if there are more coming. But there's been no activity since that one Monday. And I called the next day to see if they would need me to go back. And he said they were on another project. He'd let me know when or if they were coming back. So I didn't have in the hand in the design, in the type, or the location of the cameras, but that apparently is the way it's being done in town through the town administrator to the police department for setting those up.
All right, so I have a second question on this. So now, is this linked to the Maritime Center cameras? And do you have access? So can you just, from your office, can you see what's going on at the landing? And can you see what's going on at the Maritime Center? Or are the cameras designed to do that? Maybe Roger can help us with
At
that.
this time, my answer is no. I don't personally have the ability to look at those in real time. And as to whether they're capable of what's coming, I don't know. I'm not sure that we would want to let the public know exactly what capability we have to give away any security advantage those might have. But at this point, I would say that they're still a work in progress. And my goal eventually be able to access the cameras from anywhere at any time, both live and go back and review, for evidence collection later if need be.
Okay. Any questions from anybody? Okay. Seasonal assistant hiring status, you kind of covered that.
I touched under that.
Anything
and-
further on it?
No, we've received some applications. I've sent in an email requesting the process that we need to go through since we don't have a building open to interview people and we're keeping social distancing and the town offices are closed. There's got to be a process or an alternative procedure for interviewing and processing suitable candidates for hire. The total number of people we hire will depend on the financial picture that's presented to us, but we're still collecting and I'm still asking how we proceed.
Okay. Any other comments from anybody? Or anything else for our agenda? Any questions from anybody out in the studio audience? Warren?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Okay. Everybody else good?
Mhm.
Yep.
I'm good.
All good.
All right, so the next, we should probably schedule another,
How about another
our
Zoom
next meeting. You gotta,
the 19th of May? We should know way more by then. This governor was supposed to open up the state on the 18th, and we'll probably have a lot more data. Is Tuesday the 19th good for everybody?
Well, let me check my
Fine with
schedule
me.
because it's really busy right now.
Completely blank.
I'm sure it looks good to me.
What about your baking, Patty?
Uh, I do have a 7 o'clock. I have a Concom meeting at 7 o'clock on Tuesday, the 19th.
I'm actually
Time,
busy.
good time?
I'm busy until 3.
7.
So anytime after 3.
I have Concom meeting at 7.
I gotta get,
what
I'm getting
time
my
are we
hair
in?
cut, so I'm trying to figure out when I'm gonna get my hair cut. All right, you wanna pick another date, or is that good?
I think it's fine. Just depends on the time. What time then? If Andy can't do it until 3,
3.
Andy, or you?
3 at the earliest.
3's okay with me, or 4. I'm good at either
How about
time.
4 o'clock on the 19th? 4 o'clock.
Good.
Sure.
All right, so will that work for you, Warren?
Yes, yep.
That's 4 o'clock on the 19th.
May 19th is a Tuesday, and we'll have more data at that time that we can then talk about some of these things. I think it'll be good.
Okay, just before we all vote, Steve, is that good with you?
Yeah, I already had my hair done. Thanks to Mr. Dick. So that'll be fine.
Okay, so that's good with you, Roger's good. Kevin's that good with you?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We'll all look a little shaggier, but it's okay.
Speak for yourself.
All right, well, I guess that's good. Okay, so our next meeting will be May 19th, Tuesday at 4 p.m. and we'll be Zooming it.
Zoom it.
Great.
I'll Zoom you guys later.
All right.
Just before we do that, is that something that with our host, Peter Chase. Is that Dave for you?
That's fine. Yep.
Oh, perfect. Okay, everybody, we're good.
Great, thank you.
All right,
Peter,
so
you can be-
motion to adjourn. Don't sign
Peter-
out yet, Kevin.
Peter, you
We
can be
got-
sending out the link.
I usually send it to the chairperson and then they send it out to everyone. So
Okay.
Okay.
I only
I
want to
get-
say
I
one
sent it
more
to Steve.
thing. I only want
Go
to say
ahead.
one more thing. I'm so glad to see Warren.
Yeah,
We're all glad to see Warren.
Rooting for you, buddy.
Hey, Warren,
Yeah,
thank you for coming.
yeah.
Thanks, Warren.
all right.
Thank you, Warren. It's so nice to see you and hear from you.
So,
Agreed.
I gotta get.
All right.
Okay, well, just
Gotta go.
one final thing. Just one final thing. I just want to, once again, just thank Peter Chase and DCTV for his patience and mostly patience and understanding with all of us on this. And I want to thank you all for coming to this meeting. So thank
Yes.
you all. And
Thank you, Steve.
sign off. Thank you.
all.
Thank you,
Everybody stay
Peter.
safe.
Thanks
Thank
all.
you all.
Zoom
Thank
in.
you.